Now, let's introduce the concept of pivot charts and how to make dynamic charts using Excel. So let's see that. So pivot charts are almost like your normal charts. However, you can use the filters with the charts. This part we have already seen in Slicer, but we'll just review it once again so that you have a better understanding. So we'll do it just now. So we'll see how to make dynamic charts. We'll check all these things. Chart layouts we have already seen. Try to work with a pivot chart. We'll take our old sales data. We have this is a pivot, let's say. Now I want to make a chart out of this pivot. See, last time we had already done these charts. If you remember, this month-wise chart and quantity-wise, sales-wise chart, and we had already created these slicers in our last session. So these were all interactive charts. In last session itself, we had discussed about dynamic charts, how to create slicers and how to make pivot charts dynamic. So the same thing, we'll just try to revise once again with a simple chart, simple pivot. So creating a chart is possible either through data or through pivots. So through data we have already seen how to create a chart. We also saw a dual axis chart. But in case of pivots, how do we do that? Let's see. You just need to select that the pivot that you have made and then go to pivot tools and you will find an option here called pivot chart. The moment you click on pivot chart, it automatically creates a chart for you. You can select that particular chart, or there are other types of charts as well which we can see. Line charts or something like this, different types of charts these are. Now when you click on OK, it creates a chart. Let's say this is a bar chart. Now how this becomes a dynamic chart, just see here. All these items, this particular item, the moment you select it, you can uncheck some of the options or check some of the options and say OK, your chart changes. So this is what you mean by dynamic chart, and this we have already explained while making the slicers. So slicers were all same. We can create dynamic charts using slicers. We can clear off the filters like this. So this is the concept of dynamic chart actually. We'll go to a very interesting topic, the topic of macros, and we will see how we can record macros. Okay, so we'll try a very short project out here. So pay attention to this. It's a very important part of your Excel course. What I will do, I will just create a blank file. So this is a blank file. Now, it's a collection of data which can be done without copy and paste at one place. Okay, I think you have got the logic, but you're not able to express what the exact thing is. Macro, in simple terms, you say that if you have some repetitive task, then you can automate that using macro. So that is the concept of macro. So macro in Excel allows you to automate repetitive tasks. So what we will do here, we will try to record a macro from a fresh Excel sheet, and my objective here is to make an attendance sheet. Okay, so attendance sheet is there for all the organizations, and there are internal attendance sheets also that we create and then we pass it to some other departments. So let's take an example that I am from HR and I want to track the attendance of each of the departments in an Excel sheet. Now I don't want people to use their own formats or designs. So that's why I want that I will give them a format and that they can use. So instead of making the Excel file over and again, what we can do, and see, this attendance is not only for 1 month, this will be for months and months. So every time you need not do that formatting and copy pasting and data and all those things, the headings and everything. So let's try to automate the thing. We'll take a fresh sheet. The first step of creating a macro is to convert this file into a macro enabled file. Right now, this file is only having an extension of .xlsx, which is a simple Excel file. We need to convert this into a macro enabled file. Let's see how do we do that. We need to go to File, Save As, and wherever you want to save it. Let's say I want to save it in my desktop or some other folder, wherever you want to save this file. Let's say I will save this in my desktop, and then I'll give it a name, let's say attendance, and before clicking on this save button, what you should do, go to this option, Excel Macro Enabled Workbook, and select that option and say save. The moment you do so, your attendance file, means the file has been created with the name attendance and it has an extension of .xlsm. Now this Excel has become an enabled file. This means it can execute. Fine. So till now, whatever files we had created, those were all static files. So you can send it to someone and they can see, do calculation, everything is fine, but nothing will happen automatically. So this is one part where we can make steps using some automation. So how do we do that? So the first thing you have to do is to start recording a macro. Now, in case you don't see the macro button here, macro button can only be seen when you have the developer tab, this tab. So this is the tab where you can see all the macro related options. We will explore all these options. Okay. But for the first thing, let's say you don't have the developer tab itself, then what will happen? So in that case, what you need to do, you go to File and go to Options, and there's an option called Customize Ribbon. The moment you go to Customize Ribbon, you will see there is an option called Developer. So now you understand, if this Developer tab is not highlighted, this means you won't have your developer icon or developer tab here. See, developer is gone now. So let's say this is your Excel sheet and this is your macro Excel sheet, but you don't have developer. How will you record a macro? You go to File, let's go there again, Options, go to Customize Ribbon and go to Developer and then say OK. The moment you do so, your developer tab comes. Now you might have some issues while recording macro or while executing macros also. So before you go to the macro part of it, you should understand macro security. So let's see what do you mean by macro security. So macro security allows you to run a macro on your computer. So there are different options. By default, you see that it is highlighting the option as disable all macros with notification. So the moment you say disable all macros with notification, what will happen? Macros will be restricted on your computer, but whenever you get a file which is a macro enabled file, then system will prompt you, do you want to work with the macro? If you say yes, then it will work. So it's always better to keep this part highlighted. If you select the first option, then what will happen? Excel will not at all run any macros, nor it will ask you for any notification. It will not ask for any permission also from you. So if you select this one, first one. If you select the last one, that is the most dangerous option. What will happen? Without your knowledge, macros can run on your system. So without you enabling or without you giving the permission, macros can run. So let me tell you one thing, macros, though it gives you a freedom to do automation, it comes with the word of caution. There may be some macros which can hamper your computer, just like a virus. So only when you know that you can get macros from trusted people, then only you should have this macro enabled. Otherwise, I recommend always to keep this second option highlighted, that macros will be disabled. But if you receive a file which has some macros, it will ask you for a notification, and if you say enable macro or run the macro, then it will run the macro for you. We will begin with the macro. It's a very small macro which will automate a few steps. So for recording the macro, we need to press this button called record macro and give it a name. So let's say any name I can give. Let's say I have given ATTN, and then we have to give it a shortcut. So I give a shortcut, and this macro I want it to be used only for this workbook. If you want, you can give some description here also. So this also we can do. The moment we do so, the recording starts. So we suppose wanted to make a generic attendance sheet. So we just saying month and let's say code, name, department, and let's say this month's attendance sheet I am making. Right now see that the entire macro, the entire process, whatever we are doing, this is being recorded. So I can just put this month. The moment I do so, Excel automatically takes the first day of the month and writes it at December 2014, which is absolutely fine. And then I want to create the attendance sheet. So what I will do, the first date of the attendance should always be the initial date. And then I drag it up till some dates, let's say. If you want, you can drag it till 10 also. However, we see that the dates are not getting populated. The problem is that we have given a formula here. So this formula is not working for the other cells. So what we should do, we should say this plus 1. The moment we do so, we see that the numbers have arrived. Now please keep it in mind that this is not actually 1, it is actually a date. Now if I want to find out, so this was one date format. Here, if I want to find out the day of the week for this date, then we use a function called text. We'll see some other examples also for this text function through our presentation. But for the time being, just see how this date can be converted to the day of the month. So the value will be this date, and I want to see the day of week, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like this. So for that you need to give triple D. The moment I give triple D and press enter, I get the day. So 1st of December was Monday. Similarly, what I will do, I will just copy and paste the values here. Now my attendance sheet is looking fine, but it is not formatted. So what I will do, I will quickly format this. How will I format? I will just select these cells and I will say autofit. The moment I do autofit, what happens? The cells automatically takes their bit. Then what I do, I put something like this, and then I put some border so that it looks almost like an attendance sheet. Now usually what happens when we are making an attendance sheet, this particular sheet, for this particular sheet, Saturday and Sunday is supposed to be a holiday. So we want Saturday and Sunday to be colored in a different color. So I would require the concept of conditional formatting here, which we have already discussed in the past sessions. But this time we'll use this conditional formatting not for a value, but for a formula. How do we use it? We say, we select the first cell, go to conditional formatting. Please mark it that everything is getting recorded, whatever we are doing right now. We go to new rule and then use a formula, and then we say that if the date means if this particular day of week is Saturday or Sunday, then please color this particular cell. See what happens. We have to use an operator called OR, and then we say or this value is equal to Saturday, or this value is equal to Sunday, then change the format. But I want this to move through columns. That's why I won't give it an absolute reference. I would rather prefer a mixed reference. Similarly, for this also, we give it as mixed reference. And then I go to format and I go to fill and I select a color, let's say any color I want, and I say OK, and I say OK. So nothing happens because this is a Monday. So for Monday it won't be highlighted. Then how it will get highlighted? What we will do, we will copy this format and paste it throughout all the cells. The moment we do so, we see that Saturday, Sunday has been highlighted. So let's say this is what we wanted to do for the macro. So our macro is done. What we will do, we will just stop the macro. So macro is stopped. Now what we can do, we can go to any of the sheet, and we know that we have given a shortcut to our macro. So we can either go to developer, macros, and run this macro like this. See, the macro is executed. So this was one file and this is our second file. So the formatting is not applicable. We can change the formatting. Not a problem. We can simply go to format cells and then we can just give DD. The moment we do so, it happens. So in any of the worksheets, we can now get the attendance sheet. Now there is one more magic that we have. There is one more magic that we have for this month. So right now this attendance sheet is for December. I can convert it into January 2015 also. The moment I do so, what happens? Your days and months changes. Why? Because you see that everything is a formula over here. Everything is a formula. So the logic is, whenever you put a month, the first cell takes the month. The consecutive cells takes one more value from the first cell. And then these all days come from a function called day. So text function is there through which we can pull out the day. And this we have done through conditional formatting. So you see any of the month, I can prepare an attendance sheet now. So this is the use of macros. I go to any of the sheets, I take my cursor, and if I want, I can just take the shortcut also, Control-Shift-M. So automatically what happens? It creates the macro. So you see sheet number 3 has also got a new macro. So this is the concept of macro. So for you, this is macro. Now this macro has been recorded. Understand that Excel writes this macro whenever you are recording it. So if you want to see at any point of time that how my macro looks like, you can always go to Visual Basic here and then see the macro code. So this is the macro code that has been written by Excel. This is the macro code. So macro codes are always written in a module. So these are the modules. So a macro code is written here like this. Like this. So this becomes my macro, and that was the code. For executing the macros, we have already discussed that we should always have the second option clicked so that the macro is executed properly. In our case, this is already clicked, so we don't have any issues. And we can automate. Now keep one thing in mind you have to keep, like this particular macro will execute in this particular sheet because this is valid for this workbook. So right now the macro that we have created, that is applicable for any of the months. We can just change the month and then we can see the difference, and then like this. So this is how a macro is created.